Mercedes really do hope that come lights out in Bahrain later this year, they would have built a consistent race-winning car after the horrible 2022 season. Mercedes are one of, and maybe is, the biggest team in Formula 1, with one of the greatest drivers of all time driving for them. So they have to build a good car every year. In today's video, we're going to talk about what exactly went wrong with the W13 and some of the updates that we have that could and might happen with the W14, which will be the car Mercedes will be taking into the 2023 to hopefully bounce back. Let's get into it then. To start, we're going into 2021 and the heartbreak of the final race of the season for Mercedes and how the title was snatched out of Lewis Hamilton's hands on the final lap. Of course, with the new raft of regulations, what would come in 2022, Mercedes hoped that they could come back with a bang and do what they've been doing for so many years, win consistently. However, as you probably know, this was far from the case and the Silver Arrows would only take home one win all season and came in the penultimate race in Brazil with George Russell. Both Mercedes drivers struggled with the car all season as the W13 was seen as an animal which was impossible to tame. All season we heard Toto Wolff talk a lot about updates that were going on onto the car with the intention to win back then, but they were looking forward to 2023 when they would get a fresh start and have a chance to win the championship. We all saw the famous no side pods that Mercedes chose to have in 2022 and it was very controversial as they were the only team on the grid to do so. However, even though many people talked about how this was the issue with the W13, Toto Wolff and Mercedes talked about this not being the issue because they were so slow. Mercedes changed almost everything else on the car that you could visually see. Rear wing, front wing, diffuser, you name it, Mercedes adapted and changed it. The W13 was just inconsistent and in some races they could have a chance at the win and in the next race they were struggling to get on the podium. Something they had to fix for the W14 for sure. Mercedes just seemed as if they missed the mark fully with these new regulations. The issue was there for everyone to see, but the Silver Arrows were very quiet about the issue and kept their cards close to their chests. One thing we do have to mention is porpoising, which was ever present for the first half of the season, which really did halt any possible progress. The constant bouncing that would happen on the straights and around high-speed corners compromised the speed that the car was able to produce. As a result of this, Mercedes had to really raise the hide rate, which stopped a lot of the porpoising, but it meant the downforce was much worse, which the W13 had a lot of. It has to be said, in the second half of the season, when the technical directive came in place regarding the bouncing, Mercedes looked much better, and we saw less and less of the porpoising. Of course, there were new rules and regulations surrounding this issue, so Mercedes hope that the W14 has no more of that awful issue that hurt their season early on. Finally, an issue that Mercedes had in 2022 was surrounding the setup difficulties that Lewis Hamilton had compared to George Russell. Lewis was the more experienced of the two drivers and he was given the task of testing setups which would compromise his whole weekend sometimes. Russell was able to do his own thing and just find a setup for him, whilst Lewis was out there every session testing new things on the team, which allowed George to find his optimal setup quicker, so the team could take home points and podiums. This is a major reason why in the early part of the season, Lewis would struggle against George, which meant that Mercedes only had one driver scoring points if Lewis had not had to test setups every week for the first half of the season. It could have been very possible that Mercedes could have taken P2 in the Constructors' Championships, but of course, we will never know. What do you think the issue was with the W13? Will Mercedes be back with the W14 and be able to dominate as they did for so long? Well, let's get into some of the updates that we have to the W14. Toto Wolff came out towards the back end of 2022 season talking about how he has seen the W14 in the wind tunnel. When he did this, he spoke about how he was shocked that the W14 looked exactly the same as the W13 as you look at it from the outside. So these are clear hints from Toto that you may not actually be able to see the change, such as a whole different front wing or a big change to the side pods. So this pretty much leaves it down to the floor, which will have a massive change to it. Of course, we are unable to see the flaw of the car, and every team has different ideas and ways that they approach it. When you look at the top team in 2022, Red Bull, they got the flaw perfect as they had no porpoising at all, and this is down to the mastermind that is Adrian Newey. Now, Mercedes in 2022 were not that far off Red Bull once they sorted out the setup issues, changing the car and what you saw, but it was impossible for Mercedes to change the flaw mid-season. This is down to the cost cap, and they do not want to break it at all by changing the flaw. It will be very expensive, and they will want to change it going into 2023 with the W14. Mercedes will also want to fix the straight line speed that they had the lack of in 2022, as they were very slow. Both the Red Bulls and the Ferrari made it look easy when overtaking the Mercedes. So it is clear that the W14 will have the near enough exact same look, but the crucial DNA will be a lot of difference and something that we're not to be able to see once we arrive in Bahrain for pre-season testing. We heard that Mercedes do know the issue that was causing them to be so poorly last season, and this was said to be pretty early on, so the team back at the factory must have been working day and night trying to find the issue that has to be picked. For Mercedes fans, that is something that you clearly want to hear, as Toto was talking non-stop about the W14 very early in the season. So they were putting a lot of focus on it, probably before a lot of other teams. The last upgrades to the W13 happened at the Circuit of the Americas, and this was very smart from Mercedes, as the whole purpose was to get some data for potential parts that were going into the W14. So Mercedes is hungrier than ever, looking like they have found the issue, and rumours coming out saying it will help them massively. We will just have to wait and see until we get to that checker flag after the first race of the season to see if these changes will work or not. Overall, looking back at the W13 for Mercedes in 2022 and the updates that we know from the W14, Mercedes hope that they are on the up. 2022 was a thorn in their side, and they really hope 2022 will be the last of their struggles in this new era. But it may actually help them going forward. They dominated the sport for 8 years, so it may have been easy to get complacent, and this could have happened in 2022. Now, they are clearly more motivated than ever, and Toto and the team hope that they get back on track, and these recent updates do look promising for them and all the fans at home. Now, let's leave the question to you. What do you think will happen with Mercedes in 2023? Will they be back at the top and winning races and championships once again? Or will it be another season of heartache? Let us know your predictions in the comments below. We want to thank you for watching this video, and make sure to drop a like and hit that subscribe button. It really helps us out and we appreciate it massively.